Good morning, everyone. The Delaware County, Gorsuch Joint County number 588 Drainage Improvements Petition Committee, made up of the commissioners from the two counties, is now in session, and I am president of this joint committee. And everyone, welcome to the first hearing for the consideration of the Gorsuch Drainage Improvement Petition. And I'm going to ask Jennifer if she take roll.
Vote or attendant. Commissioner Merrill.
Aye, here.
Commissioner Lewis.
Aye.
Commissioner Benton.
Here.
Commissioner Flowers.
Here.
Commissioner Black.
Here.
Commissioner Bubb.
Present.
With that, I'm going to kind of outline what will occur today. Many of you, this will be your first time you may have been involved in one of these, so you have some idea what will happen. And first of all, there's a sign-up sheet that's going around. Just need you to sign that you're here today and present. So I'm not sure where it's at exactly. Have we started around yet?
Yes.
Okay. And we will have an amendment to include some additional petitioners. I'm going to go ahead and walk through today's events, then we'll come back to that. We're going to hear, ultimately after that, we will hear a report from the county engineer and Soil and Water Conservation District. We'll take questions from the joint board. We'll hear from all those in favor of the petition. We'll hear from all those opposed to the petition. And during testimony, you'll be asked to take an oath. We'll continue back and forth. If new information comes up or additional people wish to speak, we'll take questions from the board. And after listening to the testimony and the report of the engineer, the joint board will decide whether to grant the prayer petition or dismiss the petition. And the board considers the following in their decision: whether the joint board hereby finds that the proposed improvement is necessary, that it will be conducive to the public welfare, and the board also finds it is reasonably certain that the cost of the proposed improvements will be less than the benefits. And if the board grants the prayer of the petition, the Delaware County engineer will proceed with preparation of plans, reports, and individual schedules of assessments for the project. And when the plans are complete, a final hearing will be held at a future date. Now with that, before we go into the hearing, we have a motion that we need to put before us. Jennifer.
Resolution number 19-01, in the matter of allowing applications to amend the petition for the joint county drainage petition filed by Harlem Township Board of Trustees for the Gorsuch Joint County number 588.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Vote.
Vote on motion 19-01. Commissioner Merrill.
Aye.
Commissioner Lewis.
Aye.
Commissioner Benton.
Aye.
Commissioner Flowers.
Aye.
Commissioner Black.
Aye.
Commissioner Bubb.
Aye.
I have already reviewed what's going to happen, so now we need to make a motion to get into the hearing.
Resolution number 19-02, public hearing for consideration of the Gorsuch Joint County number 588 drainage improvement petition filed by Harlem Township Board of Trustees and others.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Vote.
Vote on motion 19-02. Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mr. Flowers?
Aye.
Mr. Black?
Aye.
Mr. Bubb?
Yes.
Okay. With that, we'll now turn it over to Soil and Water for our presentation.
Good morning, Commissioners. Brett Bacon, Delaware Soil and Water Conservation District. By the state law, I'm required to read the first hearing report into the record in its entirety. So then we'll open up for questions. I try to. So. This report has been prepared for the preliminary hearing on a drainage improvement petition filed by the Harlem Township trustees and others on August 21st, 2018. The petition has been signed by representatives of 10 of the 73 parcels in the watershed. The general location and course of the requested improvements is quoted from the petition as follows. In Delaware County, Harlem Township, within the Gorsuch Joint County number 588 watershed, following from and including the crossing of Montgomery Road, but not limited to the course and termini of the existing improvement at the Ford Cook Joint County number 46. The following is the nature of the work petitioned as quoted from the petition. To generally improve the drainage, both surface and subsurface, to a good and sufficient outlet by replacing, repairing, or altering the existing improvements as required and or creating new surface and subsurface drainage mains or laterals as requested by this petition. The petition was amended based on a request by Linda Allaby, 16277 Montgomery Road, received on January 2nd, 2019, and two further requests by Jeffrey Smithberger, 16081 Montgomery Road, and Thelma Evans, 2242 South County Line Road, received on January 11th, 2019. The amendment requests are to provide these parcels with a good and sufficient outlet for both surface and subsurface drainage. The Joint Board accepted these requests for amendment on February 4th, 2019. Petition process. This petition has been submitted according to Section 6133 of the Ohio Revised Code, ORC, which authorizes the Joint Board of Commissioners to act on behalf of benefited property owners to make drainage improvements. If the Joint Board of Commissioners decides to proceed with a project, the costs related to the improvements in the development of plans, reports, and schedules are assessed to the landowners in the watershed according to the benefit received to their watershed acreage. These special assessments will be added to the property taxes for each property and can be spread over a maximum of an 8-year period. Property owners may also choose to pay their assessment in a lump sum payment prior to placement on their property taxes. Additionally, the improvements will be placed on the Delaware County Drainage Maintenance Program in perpetuity per ORC Section 6137, and the annual maintenance assessment will appear on property tax statements as a special assessment in the same manner as the construction assessments. These annual maintenance assessments are generally in the range of 2 to 3% of the construction assessment. It should be noted that property owners are only assessed for those improvements that are located downstream from their properties. No property is assessed for improvements located upstream. The public agencies that own rights-of-way for public roads and other public lands are also assessed for both construction and maintenance costs in the same manner as private property owners. The decision to approve a petition project is a three-step process. First, a viewing of the proposed improvement is conducted for the Joint Board to familiarize themselves with the watershed and general conditions. The Joint Board conducted the viewing for this project on November 5th, 2018. Next, a preliminary hearing is held to consider the initial feasibility of the proposal. It is this preliminary first hearing that is before us today. If this petition is approved, a final hearing will be conducted to further consider this petition. At that time, final details such as engineering plans and specifications, cost estimates, and a proposed schedule of assessments will be known. Existing conditions. The Delaware Soil and Water Conservation District, Delaware County Engineers Office, and Licking County Engineers Office have made the following observations of the watershed using on-site evaluation and a review of available aerial photography, topographic mapping, and soils mapping. The Gorsuch Joint County No. 588 watershed is approximately 449 acres. The predominant land uses within the watershed are agricultural and rural residential. There are 47 rural residential properties in the watershed. The original improvements to the watershed were constructed in 1928. These improvements consisted of open channel construction and subsurface drain installation. The drainage system does not appear to be functioning at or near optimum capacity due to a lack of comprehensive maintenance and the generally deteriorated condition of the infrastructure. The open channel also has a large amount of brush and debris on the banks and in the channel, thus restricting flow. Numerous blowouts have been observed in the subsurface drainage system, and there is an absence of uniform surface grading that has resulted in areas of surface ponding. Additionally, the culvert under Montgomery Road lacks an adequate surface outlet. In the area of the amendment request, water is frequently ponded both outside and within the road right-of-way. There appears to be a lack of an adequate surface drainage outlet for this area, and the subsurface drainage system does not appear to be functioning at full capacity. These conditions are indicators of an aged, overburdened, and unmaintained drainage infrastructure. While the existing drainage system still provides some degree of drainage benefit, it does not appear to function as a good and sufficient outlet. Estimate of cost factors favorable, unfavorable, benefit versus cost. ORC 6133 requires the county engineers to state in a report factors favorable and unfavorable to a proposed project, estimate the cost of the project, and state an opinion as to whether the benefits of the project exceed the cost. The following information is presented for your consideration. Construction scope and estimate. Project scope. The project has been separated into two parts, main and lateral A, to more accurately reflect the areas of work and associated costs. The main portion of the project would begin at the junction of the Gorsuch Joint County watershed with the Cook Joint County Drainage Maintenance Project number 5801 and terminate at Montgomery Road. This reflects the work requested by the original petition. Items of work for the main would include open channel construction, clearing and snagging, and private drive culvert replacements. Lateral A would begin at Montgomery Road and extend upstream to the properties represented by the amendment requests. Items of work for lateral A would include reconstruction of the existing grassed waterway and replacement of the existing subsurface drain. Project estimate, Main. Construction, $79,275. Drainage maintenance, ORC 6137, first year startup, 5% of the construction estimate, $3,963.75. Project administration, survey, and engineering, 15% of construction estimate, $11,981.25. Total estimate, Main, $95,130. Project estimate, lateral A, construction, $125,050. Drainage maintenance, ORC 6137, first year startup, 5% of the construction estimate, $6,252.50. Project administration, survey, and engineering, 15% of the construction estimate, $18,757.50. Total estimate, lateral A, $150,060. Notes. It is important to understand that the above estimates are preliminary and made in the absence of a current detailed topographic survey of the project area. Should the project fail to be approved at the final hearing, the benefiting landowners, as defined by ORC 6133, may still be responsible for the cost of project administration, survey, and engineering design. The above estimate does not include the estimated cost for installation of a road culvert in the Montgomery Road right-of-way. This cost is estimated at $10,000 and would be direct assessed to Harlem Township. Assessments. If the project moves forward to the second hearing, the Ohio Revised Code instructs the county engineer to calculate the assessments to individual property owners based on the benefits received for the improvements for the various properties in the watershed. ORC 6133 states, as a reference to ORC section 6131, that, quote, uplands that have been removed from their natural state by deforestation, cultivation, artificial drainage, urban development, or other man-made causes shall be considered as benefited by an improvement required to dispose of the accelerated flow of water from the uplands. Benefits are further defined by the ORC as elimination or reduction of damage from flood, removal of water conditions that jeopardize public health, safety, or welfare, and increased value of land resulting from the improvement. Individual parcel assessments are not calculated for the preliminary hearing and are only calculated if the petition moves forward to a second or final hearing. Factors favorable, unfavorable. Factors favorable to the improvement. 1, improved surface and subsurface drainage in the watershed. 2, improved outlet for subsurface drainage components of household sewage treatment systems and for residential drainage systems. 3, reduction of future deterioration of surface and subsurface drainage infrastructure. 4, annual inspections and maintenance of the improvement in perpetuity. Factors unfavorable to the improvement. 1, temporary land use disruption during construction. 2, cost of construction and maintenance may be a burden to some landowners. 3, removal of existing trees and brush in the improvement area. Benefits versus cost. Assessments for property within the watershed are calculated based on the benefits derived. A publication by the Ohio State University Extension titled Returns to Farm Drainage details several studies conducted by Ohio State researchers on the effects of drainage on crop yields. The studies show that fields with good drainage will produce higher yields than fields that have poor drainage. A recently completed 25-year study showed that subsurface drainage increased corn yields by 24% to 39% and increased soybean yields by 13% to 46%. The same study also analyzed the return on investment for installing subsurface drainage in a field. It found that for corn, $4 is returned for every $1 invested, and for soybeans, $3 is returned for every $1 invested. To state it generally, the benefits of drainage will equal the increased yield multiplied by the market price. The increased value or benefit for residential properties is much more subjective and difficult to quantify. For residential properties, the lack of an adequate drainage outlet can negatively impact the condition of household sewage treatment systems, potentially limiting the value of home for resale. Should the existing system fail, the cost to perform repairs or construct an alternate sewage treatment system can range from the thousands to tens of thousands of dollars. It would also be reasonable to consider the cost of environmental degradation due to residential sewage treatment systems that may not be functioning properly. Other benefits that are commonly perceived as a result of drainage improvements focus on quality of life and positive neighborhood perception. Communities that have planned and maintained stormwater drainage infrastructures generally have higher resale values than those communities that are known to have a history of drainage problems or flooding. Conclusions. Based on all of the information gathered and generated for this project, we believe this project is technically feasible and would adequately serve the project area's drainage needs. However, the testimony brought to the joint board by the landowners as to whether the benefits of this project exceed the costs should be given significant consideration in the decision to move forward with this project. Should the current petition be approved to proceed to a final hearing, the petition bond will be returned and detailed plans, specifications, and estimated costs and a schedule of assessments would be prepared. Additionally, a benefit versus cost analysis will also be performed to further determine the feasibility of advancing this proposed project.
Very good, thank you. Do we have any questions from the board at this point?
Commissioner, I do have one more additional point I'd like
Okay.
to bring up here. Between the viewing and the first hearing today, Dan Bart from the Licking County Engineer's Office and myself did some preliminary investigation in the watershed, and we've actually made a revision to the watershed line as it was shown on the map at the viewing. So I just wanted to show real quick. The map up here was the original line as we had it presented at the viewing. Thank you, Brett. This would be the line as we would propose it today. So I'll go back. So in Delaware County, this area here and right here is what we modified. And then Licking County, that's my pointer here. It's off to, I can't see. There we go. It would be, these three parcels here would now be out of the watershed, and then these parcels over here, so.
So the bulk of it's in Licking, the addition?
Yeah, most of the changes are in Licking County. No parcels were dropped out of the watershed in Delaware County. We just changed the line a little bit, and that was based on visual observation. So this is the map I'm going to leave up right now because this is our most accurate map to date.
Is there any questions? Yes.
Okay, the outlet for the main's up there in the top right, top left-hand corner.
Correct, on parcel 17.
Okay, and then the main goes to?
Right there.
Road?
To the upstream side of the road.
Okay, and then the lateral A is from that point on.
Right, would extend the waterway up to County Line Road, and then tile and surface grading that would be necessary to provide an outlet to the parcels that amended the petition.
Where exactly did we gather that day? I think it was...
Right there.
Okay.
Right there, yeah.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes.
The additional parcels that have been added, have those property owners been notified
Of the meeting,
of this meeting today?
we didn't add in any additional parcels.
okay.
We took some out.
Okay.
Parcels 60, 68, 69, and 72, 50, 67, 48, 66, 40, I think there's actually more in there that aren't showing up numbered on the map just because of the scale. And then 70 and 61, all would have been notified of the original mailing, and we would no longer consider them in the watershed.
But you did expand some of the parcels.
Correct. In
Coverage.
Well, you can see parcel 73 in Licking County. Right here. The line was moved up. I believe there's a lane there that we
So those
thought-
down there were taken out, and it was moved up?
Right.
Okay.
And then in Delaware County, the changes were on parcel 15, 25, 24, 33, and 14. And that was, like I say, that's just kind of the limitations of our computer-generated tool. We did a little
So
further
this more
look at.
accurately reflects the drainage?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And that would be further verified if we move to a survey and design phase. Any of those areas that we feel might be in question, we'll actually survey or, put boots on the ground and take a look at.
So the when you consider both the main and the lateral, it would cross Montgomery Road twice. You'd have two
Yes, yes.
pipes.
There are significant, I'll call them humps in the road. There's a hump probably about right here, and this area here kind of sits, it's its own little pocket that needs to drain south, and then there's another hump about right here that these properties need to drain south through. And there's actually history. The old ditch records actually do show a lateral coming off the Gorsuch number 588 up to the north side of Montgomery Road, so.
Mr. Chairman? Is lateral A terminates at this point at the County Line Road, right?
Yeah, it would actually have two kind of termination points. I just grouped them all together for the purpose of estimating.
So you get across on the right-hand side of County Line Road. I'm assuming, it looks like there may be some tile in there now that goes to that.
Absolutely.
So, you know, is the culvert that's in County Line Road adequate?
We would evaluate that. Absolutely. And any tile that would be coming under the road. And honestly, just thinking ahead here, we would probably extend the project through Montgomery Line, or through County Line, my apologies, through County Line Road, just it kind of as a matter of practice, we do that to have maintenance on the upstream side of the road. But absolutely, it would be evaluated.
Is one section, the completion of one section dependent upon the completion of the other?
Lateral A would require the main to be constructed.
Okay.
Because it is, the main is the downstream, would serve as the outlet for what we're calling lateral A.
Okay,
Lateral A, or the main would not be dependent on lateral A being constructed.
okay.
And lateral A was added basically with the additional property owners?
Correct, yes.
The outlet is into another ditch?
Yes, that is on drainage maintenance,
It's under maintenance?
Yes.
So it performs?
yes.
Have any other questions from the board? With that, we move, but does the county engineer for Licking County have anything? I'm here, but I have nothing. Okay, just wanted to ask. So, now we'll hear from all those in favor of the petition who wish to speak. I will need to swear you in, and if you'll give your name and your address, I'll swear you in, then you can make your comments. So is there someone who wants to speak in favor of the petition? Your
Cindy
name?
Rose.
I'm sorry?
My name is Cindy Rose. I filed the petition,
Okay, and your address?
15525 Montgomery Road.
Okay, if you raise your right hand. Okay.
Show where it's
I was
at.
waiting for you to
Yeah,
show.
it's the one that follows my
That's where
property.
you're at.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please proceed.
I filed the petition. My parcel is number 31. The Gorsuch watershed goes right up my property and then back of it. Over the years, I've been there since about 85, 86. Over the years, this has flooded more and more and more due to the drain tile breaking. It hasn't really been serviced since 1928. At one point in the early 90s, my husband and I talked to the county, and they told us that you can fix it yourself, but if you don't fix everything in the line, it will just keep breaking out. We fixed it ourselves, and there were no holes there for a while. And over the years, they have broken out in other spots. The holes are, some of them are half the size of this room. I mean, 20 feet deep. So I thought that it's obviously affecting other folks. The big farm across from me, the Fling property. And so I filed this petition to try and see if we could correct it the correct way, with everyone helping and participating in this. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who wants to speak in favor of the petition? Your name and address.
Chuck Bachman, 16062 Center Village Road.
And if you could identify where you're located up there, I think that's helpful.
Over the big farmer she was referring to, we have the triangle there that the ditch runs up through.
Okay. If you'll rate,
I'm sorry, where, sir?
if you have a number, maybe that would
The
help.
number?
7?
27, okay.
36, 35.
Basically the farm.
Oh, okay.
Those right
Farm.
there.
Wow, yeah.
Okay, sir, if you raise your right hand, I'll swear you in. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do?
Proceed.
Okay. Well, with the ditch the way it is presently, the water doesn't get away, and I think it's causing the people a lot of problems with their water drainage. And I just think it's important that we get that opened up because it is affecting our tile drainage in the field, and I think it's something that's necessary to do.
When we were there on the day of the viewing, I recall your field had some water issues the day we were there.
Mm-hmm.
Any comments? Anything else you want to add?
The petition, lateral A, can that be pulled at any time yet, or what is the procedure there?
Mr. Baker, do you want to answer that question for me?
The way the project would be proposed, the board will act today on whether to accept the project or not. You could always have as your option to accept one portion of the project and deny, I guess, you would have the option of accepting the main and directing us to proceed with that plan development and denying the lateral, or you could accept both and we would move to plan development. When we would get to the final hearing, we would present the project as you can approve the main and not the lateral, but if you approve the lateral, you have to approve the main. So I think I don't think once we move past the first hearing, if you approve both phases or both parts of the project, we are obligated to come back to you with a plan to address both parts of the petition. But then at the final hearing, you would have the option of approving one and not the
Excluding
other.
one if we-
Yeah. That answers your question.
Speak to the chair, please.
And when would that hearing be?
The date's yet to be determined. It'll be determined by when the work is done and gets scheduled. So I'm going to guess at least 6 months, 3 months, 2 months? Okay.
Typically, our petition projects average about 2 to 3 years from today to when we would have a final hearing. So,
So,
2 to,
Two,
some-
3 years or
you
months?
said years, I think
yeah,
you
you
meant
said
months.
2 to 3 months.
You said years in your comment you
Years.
just made.
yeah, 2 to 3 years before we would have a final hearing. That's our average based on workload.
Okay.
So from first hearing to final hearing, it takes about 2 years to get those plans developed.
Okay.
Okay. I thought I heard you earlier say 2 to 3 months.
No, I was, you were saying months, I was going like this, meaning years.
Okay. Mr. Venable, you had
Yeah, I had a question for Brett. Is it, I guess, it's still preliminary, but based on what you know at this point, would it make sense to do the main without the lateral? It seems like the water flow is coming from the lateral, and if you don't fix the lateral, you can't really fix the main. Again, I'm not an engineer, but.
No, you can improve the main without improving the lateral.
Can.
But you can't address the requests of the properties that filed the amendments without some improvement to the lateral. Now, I think there's been some discussion of maybe that work being done privately, and those are all things that could be fleshed out in the survey and design phase. But to address the requests of the amendment, would take improvements of what we have grouped as lateral A.
Okay, that helps.
So, is it Huffman or Hoffman?
Pardon?
Huffman or Hoffman, your name?
Chuck Bachman,
Well, I wasn't even close, okay.
B-A-C-H-M-A-N.
Did you have some reservations? You raised that question. Are you having some reservations about continuing with the process, or?
There's some talk, I mean, I guess really it comes down to, and we were asked at the hearing that we had on the road about going further. And I said at that time, I said, the people that farm over in Licking County, which is outlined there, and us work together, and they've got the equipment to put it in, and we feel we could do it cheaper on our own than to, go through this process. So, but I think being that we've got 2 years to make up our mind, we'd like to see if there could be some problems with a tile coming across the road on Montgomery, and if their problem is taken care of with that, then it's mostly just my land and this other farmer's land that could take care of this, and maybe we wouldn't have to, go through the process here. We definitely want to do it. I mean, that's why we want a good outlet, and then from there, we can go ahead and put the tile in.
I have a question for Brett. Question I have is, assuming that over these next 2 years, this farmer and the other farmers affected decide to do their own tiling, that would affect your final recommendation?
Absolutely.
Okay, so that would work its way into the report.
Correct.
So if we proceed today with both, and they do the work, ultimately that would get addressed in this final hearing. I just want
That's
to make sure
correct.
we're all on the same page.
Yes. And we've had some preliminary meetings with a couple of the landowners out there, and I suspect there might be some problems within the road right-of-way that may solve create the good, improving the tile within the road right-of-way or the drainage within the right-of-way may meet the request of the petition. But until I can actually get into that survey and design phase, I don't know that for certain. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yes.
The lady mentioned that she's got these huge, we call them blowholes. How deep is that original main?
I'll say 3 to 4 feet, probably.
Other questions? Okay. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here who wishes to speak in support of the petition? One last time, anyone else who wishes to speak in support of the petition? Okay. Then that brings us to anyone who would like to speak in opposition to the petition. Is there anyone here? Okay. Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Rebecca Johnson. I'm at 2455 Green Cook. We are 17, so we are where the proposed line is going to terminate into the Green Cook line. And so,
What was your last name again?
Johnson.
Johnson?
Johnson.
Thank
So
you.
we have an interesting perspective on this. We're very much different than the farmers up here, and we're not really opposed to it. We just want to make
Okay,
sure.
let's swear you in, okay? And then you
Sorry.
raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Proceed.
So as I was saying, so we're the termini of it, and we're not opposed to this project necessarily. We just want to make sure that our interests are fully accounted for. So where it comes in, we get very high water levels as it is today, and what we've heard here today is that lateral A in particular, as well as the improvements in the main, they're going to bring more water down to where it terminates on our property, and so we're worried about erosion, we're worried about land loss and other just flooding issues down on our end. I've talked to Mr. Bacon about this, and he says it will be taken into account when they do their final plans. But one thing I wanted to raise today after hearing the other people speaking is that if lateral A does not get approved, I'm sorry, if the main improvement doesn't get improved, but privately lateral A essentially is done, that definitely raises some concerns for us, that if the main flow isn't accounted for and isn't protected, but the private farmers go ahead and do improved drainage through lateral A, what does that do to our property? So again, not really opposed to it. I just wanted to make sure that our voice was heard and that we have concerns about some of these items with our unique termination point. My husband's going to come up too. He took some pictures of the property I'd like you guys to see, just to show the flooding and show our perspective on this.
Okay. And your name?
My name is Brian Nemick. I'm at 2455 Green Cook Road.
Same number 17?
Same parcel, number 17. As my wife had mentioned, we are at the termini.
Did swear you in.
Oh, sorry.
Solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do. As I was saying, we have lived on this property for a year and a half at this point, and we have, over this time, witnessed several flood events that are becoming more frequent with climate change and weather change, and the models have not been updated to account for this. So I wanted to document these changes and the flooding that we are experiencing at our end of the ditch. So I made some printouts here.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Chair.
We'll add these to the...
All right, so on the first page on number 1, this is where the Gorsuch Joint County 588 is going to join into the Cook Joint County 5801. And 5801 is the one that is running straight down the center of the photo with the 588 adjoining on the left. This is during one of the flood events. And the smaller inset pictures are pictures just when the ditch is drained. This ditch is about, 10 foot deep or so, and in this picture, it is about 1 foot from coming over the bank right onto our property. If you go ahead and flip to page number 2, this is about 350 feet downstream of where the Joint County 588 is going to intersect this. So this is where all the water needs to drain from. This is the box culvert crossing Green Cook Road. If you flip to page number 3, this is during a weather event that was actually 6 days after you surveyed the area on November 11th. And as you can see, this drainage is about 6 to 8 inches from hitting the top of this culvert. Page 4 is some other pictures, another angle of this box culvert and the flooding. In the small inset picture on the bottom, this is a picture of our front pasture where we keep our horses, and it is already flooding onto our property in this picture. On the lower right picture, inset picture, you can see the water backing up from the ditch, which is what you're seeing in the other picture, flooding onto our property. And then on slide number 5, this is on the other side of the road, other side of Green Cook Road, the outlet of the box culvert, and as you can see, it still is close to the top of this. So what my wife and I are concerned about is if we get a larger volume of water in a shorter period of time coming down this ditch, and I understand the dynamics of how water drains. You're going to have, in any rain event, you're going to have the same amount of water, but we're trying to push this down the ditch by increasing the size of it. We're going to increase the velocity. My wife addressed the erosion problems. The 588 90-degree butts into the Green Cook ditch, which is going to cause some erosion problems there. And the increased volume of water in the shorter period of time, we're concerned that this culvert is not going to handle it, and it's going to further back up onto our property, affecting our pasture and the area our horses live on, and could possibly flood an existing structure that's 60 feet away from this ditch, which is our barn, where we house our horses and our equipment that we use around our property.
So if I could summarize, and I'm going to ask Brett to come up here, which I'm sure he fully expected. Your drainage is not what you would prefer today, but you're concerned about it being worse tomorrow.
That is exactly what I'm concerned about.
Okay, I'm going to have Brett comment on that.
I'll address the road culvert question first. When the county engineer, and Brett can jump in, or I'm sure Jared can as well, I'm sure they function in much the same way as we do. When that culvert was sized, it was sized for a certain storm frequency, and that storm frequency would have assumed that every acre of ground in the watershed was draining at the most optimal way possible. So I'm confident that the culvert was designed to whatever the road travel frequency would have said, that the guidelines would have suggested that it needed to be designed to. I'm sure it's that capacity and probably more. It's just a matter of, we like to use the saying in our office that Mother Nature bats last. There are going to be storms. You know, that storm culvert may be designed for a 50-year storm, but when we get a 100-year storm, you know, there's a certain level we can't go beyond from a cost-benefit analysis. So, yes, there will be storms. I'm sure Mother Nature can throw a storm at us that will completely overtop Green Cook Road at that spot. Doesn't mean that the culvert was designed inadequately. It just means that Mother Nature threw something at us that we couldn't design for. As far as the flow down the Gorsuch ditch and intersecting with the Cook ditch, there's not any additional water that's going to be coming down that flow path. What we find is that the peak flow that the watershed will experience, you know, when it rains 3 to 4 inches and the ditch is flowing full or nearly bank full, that's I'll say the first 3 to 4 hours, the upper upper 60 to 70% of the water that's leaving the watershed. It's leaving the watershed now, and it will continue to leave the watershed whether this project is constructed or not. The drainage projects like this, we find they're more to deal with the last 10 to 15% of the water that's kind of stuck or ponded in the watershed, and the water that's there for, you know, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks after the rain events have concluded. So as far as a flow capacity or improving the Gorsuch number 588 channel so that it operates more efficiently, from a peak flow standpoint, we just don't find that it really has an impact on those downstream lands. As far as the question of erosion control is definitely a function of drainage maintenance, and if there is, we would build any necessary erosion control measures into the project planning and construction, and if there would be any kind of erosion that would happen post-project construction, that would be addressed by drainage maintenance.
So if I could put this in layman's terms.
Sorry.
This photograph here is of something he's experienced, I'm not sure when, but recently. Okay, so would it be reasonable for him to assume it will not, under normal circumstances or occasionally, it's not going to be any worse than this? It'll be better because of the drainage flow?
Looking at that picture, I would say the culvert is still within its designed capacity because the water's not on the road. So, I don't know, yeah. Plus, you can still see part of the culvert. I mean, it's not flowing full yet.
Yes.
In this picture at the outlet, we've got an open ditch.
And I didn't have the benefit of seeing the pictures. Which page are you on?
Front page.
Front page. Yes, okay.
It comes in there as an open ditch. How far back is it an open ditch before it becomes a tile?
You mean the Gorsuch ditch?
Yeah.
I'm guessing here, I think it definitely has characteristics of an open channel on the Rose property. So I'm going to somewhere in here, before it makes this turn, it would be what I would call open channel drainage.
From that point on.
Yeah, going downstream. It has characteristics of it from that curve up to Montgomery Road, especially in this. I lost it again. Let me help me out. Where's it at? It's on the bottom.
There you go.
I got it again. Okay, I'm partially colorblind, so bear with me. In this stretch here, it has characteristics of being an open channel, but My guess is that that was originally tile and surface drain. It has characteristics of open channel because a string of blowouts have connected together. So
So where exactly does the tile start? Where's it supposed to start?
I think the tile as a functional entity, starts at Montgomery Road and goes upstream. I don't think there's any section of the tile north of Montgomery Road downstream that I would describe as functional. Maybe at one point it should have been with the outlet further to the north, but that's not how it's acting now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I understand what you're saying. You know, it seems like the current dysfunctional drainage pattern is creating some detention along the way, and that's maybe what's protecting him and this box culvert from overflowing. My only observation is, and I guess I'm getting back to what we're here for today, and that's the cost benefit, plus versus minus, and the analysis you're going to do as to whether this is an assessment project that makes sense. My concern is that you fix all this, you fix your fields, you fix the drainage coming from Licking County, you fix the main, all of a sudden the watershed may not be any larger. It depends on the size of the storm, we get it. But all that water is going to end up there at 17 a lot quicker. And my concern is from a cost benefit, and I assume that that's a township road or maybe it's a county road up there with that box culvert. Is that part of the consideration that if you're going to bring more water quicker to that and over top the road, is that also a consideration of enlarging the culvert to allow to protect really the public interest there?
That culvert was actually just replaced, help me out, Brett, 4 or 5 years ago. It's actually a fairly new culvert.
Looks like it.
And like I say, would have been designed as if every acre in that watershed was draining 100% perfectly. So the flows that it would have been designed for account for that.
So it was designed for a perfect ditch.
Right.
Delivering the
Correct.
water quickly.
Correct. Doesn't mean it will never overtop, doesn't mean that that capacity is not going to be exceeded from time to time. And I'm going to guess it's probably a 25 or a 50-year storm design. We'd have to check that.
Is the outlet just beyond that culvert, that box culvert, or before it?
The outlet of the Gorsuch ditch is upstream of that box culvert.
Upstream?
Yes, it would be.
It's 350 feet.
Yeah. The outlet would be there where it would junction the Cook Joint County ditch, and the box culvert would actually be on the Cook Joint County ditch there.
So that's really not part of the consideration?
The box culvert? No.
It's not part of the watershed or
No.
this ditch analysis in terms of cost benefit?
Correct.
So that's really not something for us to consider today. We take it into account. We can see the pictures, but that's really not a decision as to whether we move forward with this consideration.
I don't know that I can answer that for you.
It's not part of the watershed.
It is not part of the watershed, no.
It could be another problem, but it's not part of the watershed.
Right.
But if what we do impacts, it's at least something we should take into consideration.
Sure.
And I'll go back to like I say, any impact reconstructing the Gorsuch ditch might have on the Cook ditch, those impacts would be completely accounted for or mitigated by measures we would build into the Gorsuch ditch design or by functions that we can already perform on drainage maintenance. My suspicion, and I hesitate to say this because it's getting into engineering design that we just don't have numbers for yet, but my suspicion is the flow capacity of the Gorsuch ditch as constructed post 6133 project would be similar to what it is now. We're not looking to increase the capacity of the ditch. We're looking to remove obstructions, maybe deepen it for the purpose of creating that tile outlet. But again, that's engineering that I could say definitively post-design.
Any other questions or comments?
I just got one question here. You mentioned this was probably designed for a 25-year or 50-year flood, the box culvert. How much rainfall is that in a 24-hour period, do you know?
I don't know. Generally speaking, a 2-year a 10-year storm is right around 2 to 3 inches. Does that sound about right? About 2 to 3 inches over a 24-hour period. But the thing about storm frequencies is that assumes a uniform rainfall over that 24-hour frequency. What we find is we may get a 3-inch rain, but it doesn't occur uniformly over a 24-hour period. We may get 3 inches of rain over 3 hours. And so our storm frequency from a total 24-hour amount may be a 10-year storm. The storm intensity may be a 100-year storm. So they're misleading numbers, I'll say. It all goes back to that peak flow. The 3-inch rain over 3 hours, it's coming harder, faster. That peak flow, when the bulk of the water gets to a certain point in the watershed, that becomes more and it becomes quicker. Obviously, if you spread that rain over 24 hours, the flows are a little bit different. But no, again, I design ditches and tile. I don't design box culverts, so I'm kind of winging it a little bit.
So I'm going to try to summarize this. The property owner at number 17, does he have reasons to be reassured based on what he's heard today that this problem will be no worse and should be better? Or does he have reason to be concerned that it could be worse?
In my opinion, it won't be worse, but I can't answer for these property owners.
You're the one who'll be doing the work, ultimately,
Right.
see the work done. So you have experience. This landowner doesn't have that.
I will say it's our job to give you the best project possible. And part of that is making sure that the impacts to all the landowners in the watershed are minimal to none, beyond what's necessary to construct the project. I'll say the negative impacts. We want to have positive impacts.
That's what we want.
Any other comments at this point? Okay, I will, thank you. Is there anyone here else who wants to speak in opposition to the petition? Last chance. Anyone else who wants to speak in opposition to the petition? Okay. With that, I will open it up from are there any questions from the board before we close the hearing? We can't vote till we close the hearing. So it's a good time to ask any questions. If you still have any questions that may affect how you will view it. Okay. Brett, I'm going to ask you the question I ask you every time. You know what it is, don't you?
Yep. No.
The question is, have you heard anything today that would change your recommendation that you've made?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay.
Motion to continue the hearing?
But we have to close the hearing first.
I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion? Vote?
Vote on motion 19-03. Commissioner Merrill?
Aye.
Commissioner Lewis?
Aye.
Commissioner Benton?
Aye.
Commissioner Flowers?
Aye.
Commissioner Black?
Aye.
Commissioner Webb?
Aye.
Okay, now it's time for us to consider whether we will grant the prayer of the petition or we'll dismiss the petition. I'm going to just open up for discussion first, or at some point, if someone wants to make a motion, fine, but anything, any one of the commissioners here wants to say at this point or comment?
I'll make a motion to continue and grant the prayer of the petition to move forward.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion.
Under discussion, it just seems like you've made a case for cost benefit that could be positive, and that we know there's a problem. So until you take it to that next step and start to do the engineering, the analysis, and start to move toward, an assessment program, it's going to take a little while. I'm not sure what else we can define today, but I'm convinced that there's enough positive here to move forward.
Definitely a problem.
Yeah, and I would encourage the consideration of the private sector solution. If you guys can figure it out, and work it out, and somehow figure out the cost, then I think it makes it easier and clearer. But I agree. I think it needs to move forward.
In the private sector, I'm going to comment, the private sector, I understand that, but I would also ask that you work closely with Soil and Water to make sure you don't make a problem a bigger issue, especially in this time frame between now and our next meeting. We'd encourage you to work with them if you should try to do it independently. Okay? Is that fair and reasonable? Yes. Yes.
We've actually already had conversations with Bachman's about what options we might have, and fully intend to work closely with them in developing the solution through that property.
Well, your willingness to work, but also you need your willingness to cooperate, so.
I think they've expressed full willingness to cooperate, so,
Okay, good.
yeah.
They're here today.
Yeah, they
Any
did.
other discussion?
On here.
Vote?
Vote on motion 19-04, granting the prayer of petition and directing the Delaware County Engineer to proceed with preparations of plans, reports, and schedules for the Gorsuch Joint County Number 588 Drainage Improvement Petition filed by Harlem Township Board of Trustees and others. Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mr. Flowers?
Aye.
Mr. Black?
Aye.
Mr. Bud?
Aye.
That motion carries. There's no other business for us today, so we are adjourned.